What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another album review, and today I am talking about the latest offering from American metal legends Riot, or Riot V as they're now known as, with their new album Mean Streets. Also came out on May 10th, this time on Atomic Fire Records. And I've lost count how many albums this band has put out, but this band has been around since 1975, back when they were known as just Riot, and then 2013, they changed their name to Riot V after they've lost some key members like Mark Real and a couple other people like Rhett Forrester, for example, Guy Speranza. Like, a lot of people have sadly passed away from this band, and there's only two members that are back from the 80s in this lineup, so no original members. But yeah, I was curious to check this one out because Riot has always been one of those bands, like, apart from some songs I've heard in the past, or parts of songs, never really dove into Riot too much, but I recognize their impact and legacy on American heavy metal. Like, they were one of the earliest true American heavy metal bands back in the mid-70s, and were kind of like almost an American version of Judas Priest and Accept to a degree back when they started. And then they've kind of gone through a trajectory where, starting in the late 80s, they kind of morphed into almost like early US power metal, and now they're kind of mixing everything that they've done together. And pretty much with this album, you get everything that you might become familiar with Riot, but also adding in some new flavors. Kicking things off with Hail to the Warriors, starts off with this like beautiful, somber, clean melody, but it's got some like mysterious overtones on top. Then it turns into straight up thrash metal, and I would say almost to the level of like old Metallica levels of thrash. It's high energy riffing. Now, I will say, I will go ahead and get this off my chest. Yeah, the vocals, I believe vocalist Todd Michael Hall, who's been like the main guy in the band now for about a decade, I think, he definitely has a high register vocal approach. Like, whenever he sings, it kind of reminds me of like the high notes that Jeff Tate used to hit back in the day, as well as Michael Kiske from Halloween. Kind of feels like a mixture of both when it comes to the higher register vocals that Todd's going for. And I'll just say, didn't start off the best when it came to the vocals, but musically this song kicked ass. It was like one of a few thrash metal songs you get on this album. And then as we keep going along throughout the rest of the album, you basically get like gritty, old school heavy metal going on. Tracks like Feel the Fire definitely reminds me of old Accept, like something from like Restless and Wild, Balls to the Wall, or even Metal Heart, something in that 80s run of Accept, and it's got plenty of grit to it. And I would be remiss to talk about this album and not mention the solos. Granted, while they can be a little bit repetitive, the performances by the guitarists are just flawless when it comes to leads. Like, you get some great leads, great lead melodies, harmonies within the solos. It's like shred-tastic is what the solos are like on this entire thing. So I'm not even going to talk about the leads anymore because, well, they're all awesome, even if they get a little repetitive as the album goes on. But then you move into a track like Love Beyond the Grave. You get some great harmonies to start off, and then it gallops along and then into Judas Priest territory. And there's even some solid groove, and you can easily headbang to this song. Like, I was definitely headbanging, going like that throughout much of the song. High Noon, and this is where we get back to the speed factor. More speed metal rather than thrash, and this is definitely more harkening back to the late 80s Riot sound, like Thundersteel, for example, which that's an album I need to get because I know that that's a classic album from the late 80s. But it kind of has more of that vibe, you know, speed metal riffage, D-beats, huge melodies, harmonies, the whole 9 yards. Now the song before this time kind of gets into more Iron Maiden territory, and this is the first of quite a few songs that I thought, is it just me or am I hearing Iron Maiden? Like, this has some like triplet swings and chugs, but with a great harmonized melody. And like I said, it definitely has an Iron Maiden feel. And like even in the bass work, like that's another thing. Production wise, the actual production recordings sound gritty and nice and natural, but the mix is fantastic. Like there's nothing weighing in on top of one another. It's all pretty even. The vocals, the guitars, the drums, and the bass is audible, and even the bass has notable moments of shine. Like I would skip forward to a song like Mortal Eyes, great bass line right off the gate before it unleashes into Zentrix, Metallica levels of thrash. It's probably the fastest song on the entire album, and it was one of my favorites. But then you get some groove moments that come up here and there, like I talked about earlier with Love Beyond the Grave, but the song Higher, which was the longest track of the album at nearly 5 minutes, has some groove to it, but then the guitars get flat out wild and then back into speed metal, D-beat, high energy territory. The title track, again, feels like Iron Maiden, and the riffs and the bass and the rhythms when it gallops along, and it's wonderful. Open Road, once again, Judas Priest nods when it comes down to the riffs and the rhythms, and even a nice little crawling melody right before the solo kicks in. Like I said, Mortal Eyes, the fastest song of the album, Zentrix Metallica levels of thrashy energy. Lost Dreams, more of those Maiden elements with the galloping melodies and rhythms. Even the tapping section on the solo. Lean Into It, kind of the odd song out. This is one of the shorter tracks at under 4 minutes. It's got groove and there's some twangy riffs going on, which is odd, but it's catchy. But then it does pick back up into some more thrash territory within like the last minute, minute and a half, and even some like taps and big dive bombs on the guitars. And then we close out with another speed metal old school Riot song with No More. Cool drum intro, then you get into melodies, speed metal territory, D beats, even some grooves show up again. And that's how we end it. So, yeah, while some songs can get a little repetitive when it comes down to some of the ideas, like again, you get some songs that feel like Judas Priest, you get some songs that feel like Iron Maiden, but again, they're kind of spread out throughout the album to at least keep intact what Riot's been known for since the beginning. Now, I know this band gets still categorized as power metal. Really, the only thing that makes this power metal, in my opinion, is the vocals. Everything else I feel is classic heavy metal with nods of thrash and speed metal on top. And overall, despite, the vocals at the beginning of the album, I wasn't completely sold on, but as the album progresses, I get used to the vocals, and I think they get better. It doesn't sound strained or forced, felt more natural as the album went along, and of course the production and the mix, unbelievable. So overall, I thought this was a killer fantastic album. Granted, probably the biggest complaint I have, it's a little over 50 minutes long. There's 12 tracks on here. While average-wise, they go about like 4 minutes. So they're not writing long songs, but I feel like they kind of overstuffed this album. Like, I do think this album gets a little bit long in the tooth. But there's not a bad song on here. I just feel like perhaps they could have cut a few songs off of this album, saved it for like a B-side EP, and be like, oh, these are cool extra songs. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 again. I thought this was a great album. Man, this year when it comes to like old school bands from the 70s coming out with material, like Saxon and Judas Priest especially, except kind of dropped the ball just a little bit, but wasn't a bad album. It just wasn't my thing. This is up there along with Priest and Saxon, at least in my opinion. But of course, those are just my thoughts. What did you guys think of Riot V Mean Streets? Let me know in the comments. Like, comment, share, subscribe, share, all that stuff. I know I said share twice. But thank you guys so much for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.